Hey, welcome to episode 26, not 26, 76 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. And just briefly about me before I introduce my amazing guest. I, I basically help people persevere. Be a junior high students, high school kids, adults. We are all we are all going towards achieving things we want in life, and sometimes when we're in the middle of that, it can seem like no way is this going to happen. But we orienting towards the purpose and the vision and just knowing that it's okay to have challenges as we go for it is a big deal. So today I'm thrilled to have an amazing guest, Lisa Anna Palmer. One of the things I love about Lisa is, for one, she's very kind. She comes from the heart, and then she also is brilliant. She's written a book. She's working on a second one, and she's really inviting leaders to love their lives so that they will lead with love. So with that, I'll be back in just a second. Um, with that, I'll be back in just a second. Yeah, okay. I'll go pause that, but now we're back. See you in a second.
Today's guest, Lisa Anna Palmer.
Let me tell you a bit more about Lisa. Lisa Anna Palmer and her team help managers and executives to love their life as leaders by developing the human skills so they can ignite engagement, attract and retain top talent, and connect with employees, be it in person or through the screen, using compassion, courage, and competence. She is the founder and CEO of Lightyear Leadership Incorporated, author of the international best-selling Light a Fire in Their Hearts, The Truth About Leadership. Look at this beautiful book. It's so beautiful. And the cover is soft. You can't feel that because you're watching this, but let me tell you, the cover is soft. Oh, light a fire in the hearts. The truth about leadership. Maybe I already said that. I don't know if I said the subtitle, but I said it again because it's a great subtitle. And did I mention the cover is really soft? Yeah, I did. And then Lisa is author of the a forthcoming book called Leadership in the Hybrid Workplace: The 7 Steps to Reset with Purpose in the Post-Pandemic World. And all those P's made me spit on my screen, but hopefully not on the camera. So without further ado, Lisa Anna Palmer. Yay!
Hi, Jason. Such a pleasure to be here with you. Hey, we have matching bookcases. Look at that.
I'm so glad you got my memo about the matching bookcase this morning and that you could accommodate that. I'm
Anything,
really glad.
Such a pleasure to be here.
It's such an honor to have you on. Would you tell briefly about the extraordinary event we met at?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was an event organized by Steve Farber and Veronica Farber, of course. And it was called the Extreme Leadership Experience in San Diego, just before the pandemic hit. So we got
Yes, like
like
weeks,
days,
weeks.
like, right, exactly. And there was a lot of hugging going on. So good thing that we all came out of there nice and healthy. And it was such a pleasure because I got to meet you. I got to meet so many other wonderful friends, heart-inspired leaders, extreme leaders who want to make a difference in the world. So it was, I have to say, it was one of the best experiences of my career. And it felt like home. So glad to connect with you here today.
Hey, I'm so glad to have you on and get to talk with you for an hour.
Yeah, me too. Because I saw you on stage at Steve's event, and you were so inspiring, Jason, that I just had to stop and give you a copy of my book. So I'm really glad you like the feel of it.
Oh, and it's beautiful and
Thank you.
it's powerful. How many people did you interview for the book?
It was over 30 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also in the soft book, you have a quote from Dr. Martin. It's soft. It's so soft.
Yeah.
It's the kind of book you can hold to your cheek and just feel good. But maybe not
You're
with
not the first
headphones
one,
on.
Jason. A lot of people pick it up and they're like, okay, they're petting the book, and it's like, it's so cool. I just love it. Yeah, the publishers knew how to pick a nice soft cover that feels good, and it really is filled with love. It was definitely a passion project for me. It took me 5 years to write it. I thought it was going to take me a year. So hopefully with my second, it will actually come true in a year. But I really wanted to put the focus on heart-inspired leadership from the heart, the ability to connect at the human level through compassion, courage, and competence is at the forefront of leadership. And to distinguish, between leadership, that's personal leadership, formal leadership, and also leadership versus management, which I think is really important when people are trying to make career decisions on how they want to advance their careers. So
Let's unpack some of that. First, talk about the difference between personal leadership and informal leadership, please.
yeah, absolutely. I believe, and I know a lot of people believe that everyone can be a leader, right? So we can be leaders of our own life, make really inspired, aligned decisions, getting clear. One of the principles I talk about in the book is profundity. So going deep and within to figure out, how we want to show up in life, what calling do we want to answer, how, what is it that we want to do. So we all have that ability. Now, that's the personal leadership. I say connecting with our inner leader. Then there's the formal leadership, and that's what we normally see in career paths in organizations. When people get promoted, they go from being a subject matter expert or being really great at what they do in the day-to-day in their profession, and all of a sudden they're put in charge of a team. And then they have to kind of dig even deeper to figure out how are they going to bring the team together to perform well and to be engaged and inspired and all those great things to come up with results and shared goals and achieve a vision together. So there's a big difference between, leading oneself and then being able to lead others as well.
So Then what's the difference between being a leader and being a manager?
Yeah, another great question. So I would say that managers who do a good job tap into their leadership. So they're leaders, right? I believe in leadership at all levels in the organization. The management piece is more about the day to day, managing resources, managing the schedule, making sure that, schedules are being executed on time, and the work is done properly, of high quality, etc. The leadership piece, I believe, is overlaid and is the part that inspires and engage people to go the extra mile, to achieve those amazing results, to work together towards a vision, to do as Steve teaches, right? To do what you love in service of people who love what you do. So that takes a certain human skill. It takes love for people. It takes caring, and it's an art and a science in itself. And I'd like to just add to that. So part of the challenges that we're seeing often in workplaces is that people are promoted because they're really great at what they do. So be it finance, marketing, whatever profession you pick, and then we have high performers, they do amazing work. And because they do amazing work, they're rewarded with a promotion. They're rewarded with a promotion, and now all of a sudden they're in charge of a team of people without having spent as much time developing the human skills and the leadership development skills that they need to be able to engage and inspire other people to do great work. And that's where we start to see issues or tension, and maybe people who get promoted into leadership roles are starting to love their leadership less and less. They're not as happy. They don't know what they signed up for. It's starting to give them headaches because they're getting pressured from senior management. They're getting complaints from employees, or employees are not performing like they think they should be. And so that's why it's really important to develop those leadership skills from the inside out.
So say for example, I'm a brilliant architect. Like I'm just really productive. I come up with innovative designs. I get my work done fast, and suddenly I'm promoted. But I've never led a group of any type. I've never even coached a softball team, and suddenly I'm promoted to leading a group of 45 architects for my organization.
Right.
What type of skills will I probably need to learn to grow to become an effective leader?
That's an excellent question. And one of the first things I would advise someone in that position is, I wish you would have started earlier asking yourself these questions, right? Because the earlier we start to develop those human skills, those leadership abilities to engage and inspire people, the better it is, so that we're ready when we get promoted. There's also a part of it which is going within. And one of my friends, his name is Ryan Gottfredson. He does a lot of research in the area. He calls it vertical skills, right? So versus the horizontal skills, which is, the work that you do. Here we're talking about basically how you show up to be the best version of yourself as a leader, as a person, etc. So one of the things that I noticed when I was interviewing leaders is that what sets great leaders apart is that ability to connect at the human level. And what that means is that they're able to attune and tune in to what are the needs of their employees, be it their motivational needs, be it some of the challenges or struggles that they're dealing with, figuring out, what are the different learning styles, etc., and to have compassion and also have the courage to be able to give the feedback and have proper conversations, to be able to guide and coach. Like, for instance, I don't know if you ever heard this statistic, but in 2016, there was a Harris poll that was done, and they found that 69% of managers are afraid to speak to their employees.
69?
Yeah, 69%
Afraid to
speak to their employees, right? So that would be a really great place to start, is how to build up that courage so that you can talk to your employees and then, engage them in conversations and build a a shared vision and be able to do all the great things you need to do to be able to plan out work, to train people, to guide them and help them to be the best version of themselves at work, to want to come into work. Because you can imagine, Jason, right? If you're going into work and your manager's avoiding you or not saying hi or not wanting to talk to you, and then the only time you talk to them is, maybe once a month or, at the performance evaluation time, and then they have to tell you how you've done, and maybe, it's not a good recipe for success, right?
And it's a recipe for focusing on the negatives instead of the positives.
Right. And that's the piece about competence, is having the competence to be able to help someone to learn a skill, help someone to be the best version of themselves, to help them, to empower them to manage their own performance and set their goals and set their timelines, etc. Because I really do believe that great leaders know how to grow other leaders, right? And it doesn't matter if it's someone who's the frontline employee, entry level or whatnot, is having that ability to go and help people to realize their leadership potential.
This is so fascinating, and I have endless questions. If anyone else has a question or a comment for Lisa, please chime in. If you just want me to fill her book and say it's soft again, let me know that too. Okay. So basically, what you're telling me is, even though in the hypothetical example, I've done all the work of going to architectural school and becoming a good technical architect and creative, you're telling me there's a whole nother arena of skills and practices that I would need to make me not only an effective leader, but a loving leader.
Yeah, a loving, great people leader. And I think that's a big realization that we're having now in organizations, is that that's what makes a difference, right? Because if you look at professionals, they spend 5-10 years developing the profession, if not longer, and then they're put in charge of a group of people, and maybe they spent zero time developing their leadership abilities.
And then suddenly they're expected to be really good at the thing they know nothing about.
Exactly. So I have a lot of time and compassion for new leaders, new managers. And I believe that they need to be supported. And that means more than sending someone to a workshop for 3 days. And I've seen that happen before, right? So somebody gets promoted and they're a new manager, let's say, or even a new supervisor, and they're sent to leadership training for 2-3 days, and they're taught a few things which are useful for sure. That's not enough. It takes years to develop really great leadership abilities, and really, to be honest, it's a lifelong learning. I don't believe we ever finish learning about how to become a better leader, right? So the sooner it can start happening, and I'm a big advocate for, let's teach these abilities to children. Let's help bring them out, and let's stop pretending that we're not human, right? Some of us, we hear about the great resignation, the great this, that, the other. I say, let's stop with the great pretense. Right? Let's stop pretending or having what I call robot envy, pretending that, we don't have emotions, that we show up at work and we have to forget about everything else. No, let's start really celebrating the fact that we are human beings. Human beings have emotions, and we can learn how to self-regulate them. We can learn how to become more resilient. We can learn how to succeed, and actually to really recognize that that's what makes us human and amazing and wonderful, is that when we're able to connect at that level, there's nothing that we can't do. For instance, when you have compassion, which compassion is more than empathy, it's empathy plus the desire to help. When you have, you'll stop at nothing if you have compassion for someone to help them. And that builds the courage, right? And if you need to go build the competence and the competencies to be able to help them the best way possible, then you start there. And I think that that's what would really set us apart as leaders, is when we're able to not only admit that we're human beings, celebrate that we're human beings at work and what that means.
So a huge part of your message is you want leaders to love their lives.
Yes, absolutely.
Not just have great skills in relation to the people they're leading, but to love their own lives.
And absolutely, because we reflect back, right, how we're feeling. So if I'm, let's say that new manager, or maybe I'm even a vice president, and I'm feeling miserable at work, I feel pressured. I'm not taking good care of myself. I'm not clear on what I want to achieve, or what calling I have, or how I want to show up. And maybe I'm making bad decisions. Maybe, I'm not showing up as the best version of myself. Guess who's going to suffer? It's not just me. It's going to be my team, right? It's going to be the people I work with. So if we want to start to develop our leadership, we need to start with ourselves. And I'm not loving my life as a leader, then that is an indication to me that I need to do some work. I need to do some work on myself, to have self-compassion, self-love, to be able to self-care and make sure I get my things in order. So that way I can reflect back love to others, and I can then support others in that same journey to be the best version of themselves. Because there's no better thing than to love what you do, right? When it comes to work, to love your leadership means that you are enjoying, you're bringing enthusiasm, good energy to your work, and others will feel it, and they'll want to be part of that, right?
So going back to the architect example, say I'm the architect talking to you, and I'm nodding my head. I'm realizing I've never been trained in leadership skills, and I'm realizing I can go deeper in myself, but at the same time, how can I learn the stuff you're saying without becoming overwhelmed with my job? Because now I'm leading, I have my responsibilities that I used to have, and it's just so much. So where would I start?
Yeah, it's not easy. So ideally you would have started earlier on in your career, and you would have thought about, well, do I feel called to lead other people? Is it something that I want to do, right? It's not for everyone. Maybe I'm better as a subject matter expert. I'll be happier, right? If that didn't happen, that's okay. So you become a leader, you've accepted the position. The first real thing to do is to raise our self-awareness. So reflection, right? So self-reflect and gain clarity on what's important to you, and why, the why. So like Simon Sinek says, right? Start with why. Why are you doing this work? Why is it important to you? How can you communicate to your team that their work is important, that they matter, and that you appreciate them, right? You can just start there. If you start with raising your own self-awareness, that's already a big step. And that doesn't take too much extra time than maybe taking some time in the morning or in the afternoon or whatnot to reflect, to think. A lot of leaders meditate. Some will pray depending on their backgrounds, or some will just sit quietly in nature. So whatever works for you. And I think the first thing to do is to bring awareness to our breath, because when we're feeling stressed, or when we're feeling like we're out of our element, is just going back to our breath to relax. So I say that would be the first thing. The second thing is there are a ton of books, audio books, etc., there are also people who can help you to bring out your leadership. Certainly Steve is a huge mentor for a lot of us, coaches like myself, like a lot of our colleagues. We're there to help, to support that journey, to support you through that journey of connecting with and bringing forth the best version of yourself, your inner leader, so that it reflects outward. So at the end of the day, it's really about peeling back the layers and starting to show your humanity and being able to establish really great relationships with the people on your team and showing them that you care.
I had a huge aha from what you just said. Like maybe that scenario where I've been where I've been promoted to leading 45 people maybe the best thing for me to do at that point would be to look within and go, oh, I really love being an architect. I it's not in my heart to lead 40 people to say thank you, but no thanks.
Right. So making a aligned career decision, and then that's where self-reflection really helps, because then you can figure out, do I really not want to lead a group of people, or maybe am I just afraid of leading people? So it's that self-reflection that needs to take place, and we can make more aligned choices for sure. Once you are promoted into that managerial role, it's again raising your awareness about why it's important to you, to think about the people that you are serving. If you're leading a team of architects, for example, they're all subject matter experts. So one of the first things you're going to ask yourself is, how do I build trust, right? Because they already know how to do architecture. So how do we build trust? How do we build collaboration and connection among team members so that they work together? How do I engage them so that we can have a shared vision and work towards that, right? So those are the kinds of questions that we start to ask ourselves versus telling people what to do. I always say, instead of telling, ask them, tell me more, because one of the biggest and most important leadership skills is listening. Yeah. And go ahead.
Building trust brings up the story you have at the beginning of this. Can you talk about a little about that day when you were studiously working and you got the tap on the shoulder?
Oh, yes, that was a really interesting day for me. So the backstory is, I'll just say it in a nutshell. I was working on a national corporate initiative on employer branding at a former employer's, and I'd been working on it for 3 years, and it was quite successful. I had a cross-functional team, so I wasn't a formal leader in that sense, except that I had a group of people working on it with me, and I kind of did the project management piece, etc. So it was very, very successful. And then suddenly there was a change in management, and a new person came in, and she was basically starting from scratch, and I had to show her the ropes or train her or whatnot. And she was starting to take a lot of the credit after we'd been working on it for 3 years. So, but anyways, I had made peace with that part.
But that's still hard to
It was hard. It was hard. Not as hard as what happened next. So what happened next was that she started to micromanage me. So I was very independent worker by this point in my career. I mean, I had direct access to the vice president, et cetera, and was able to have influence on the management team. And then she started to really micromanage me, which is, when I do employee focus groups, that's one of the biggest complaints is people do not like to be micromanaged. They want to be led, not micromanaged. There's a difference. And so she was micromanaging me on something that I was an expert in, and she was just learning about. And she wanted to start to impose herself on me and every communication and control every communication I was having. And that one day that's described in Light a Fire in Their Hearts was that I was busy writing an email or business case. I wasn't under a lot of pressure because we had very tight timelines, to send stuff to the board for approval, etc. And then like I feel a presence behind me. Don't want to get woo-woo here, but there was like a presence behind me. And then like when you feel there's somebody behind you. And then I see this bony little finger come across and start tapping on the screen. So she had been reading what I was writing. I was writing an email. I think it might have been to the vice president or something. And she's tapping on the screen and she says, "Make sure you CC me on that." I'm telling you, Jason, it took everything in me to stay in my seat. And that was it. That was kind of like a breaking point for me. And it stressed me out. All the stress that she had put me through for a couple of months really came to the forefront. And I burnt out. I mean, I got so sick that my stomach turned into like a bag of rocks. That's what it felt like knots. And
Wow.
and that's something to keep in mind as leaders, is that we have an impact on people's health, mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, right? So our actions carry a lot of weight. So her actions that day sent me to the hospital 3 times in 2 weeks to get rehydrated because I could not absorb any water. I couldn't eat. It was the worst, 2-3 weeks of my life. And then I was sick for a good 4 to 6 months where I couldn't eat properly, lost a lot of weight. It was just a very bad time. And so here I was, a high performing employee who had, informal leadership and influence for a long time. I'd worked at the organization probably for 10 years by then. And she came in and micromanaged me for a bit and she destroyed me. And it took me a long time to come back from that. So, I really wanted to share that example to demonstrate the impact that we have at work when we mistreat employees, and then the rest of the book talks about the impact we can have when we treat them with respect, with love, with caring, which is that, they go above and beyond. And then not only do you love your life better as a leader, they also love coming into work and they're healthier and everybody does better, right? Everything works better. So I think it's important to carry around that contrast because, now as a coach and as a trainer in the line of work I do, I've picked up a lot of people off the ground who had been put there because of their experiences at work. As simple as, my manager doesn't care about me. They never say hello. I feel like a number, If only that manager would say hello and spend some time and have the courage to talk with their employees, what a difference that would make. And to remember that not only are you impacting the life of your employees, but when they go home, they take you with them in a sense, right? When I went home that day and I was sick for 2 weeks, it was my husband who had to, and my sister who took me back and forth from the hospital. It was my toddler son who had to watch his mother get taken away on a stretcher because she was dehydrated. So that's the power of leadership, is that we can make or break somebody's day because work is so important to each and every one of us. So we need to remember that. And when we know and understand that and have insight into that, then we make an extra effort to continue to become better and better at engaging, inspiring, loving others at work so that they can be the best version of themselves and so that you can be the best version for them and to be of service.
You mentioned twice about leaders not talking to the employees. Are leaders sometimes shy people?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was saying, let's drop the pretense and pretend we're not human, right? So just because you get promoted doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're 100 times more courageous and you put on a Superman cape and then everything's fine, right? We still have whatever quirks or whatever fears or whatnot are still there. And then that's part of our leadership journey is to overcome some of those things, to face those things, right? So yeah, it could be very much so that they're shy, or they're worried about some of the emotional reactions that their employees might have if they give them feedback. Sometimes they're afraid of hurting people or saying the wrong thing. There's a whole host of things. And I remember one of the things when I was HR business partner was that the worst time of the years for managers, at least in Canada it was, because feedback carries a bit of a different tone, if you will, here, is that it was performance review time, right? So managers are so scared of having to give feedback during performance reviews to their employees. And so they avoided it, or it came out awkward, or it took 5 minutes, or they procrastinated. So it turned into a big thing when it really, they forgot what the purpose of those conversations were, was to help people grow. It wasn't to just rate them and, to treat them as a number and all that. It's to help them grow their skills. It's to help them grow as a person, right? To help them grow their competencies. So at the end of the day, if I'm going to take on a formal leadership role, I know that part of my journey is going to be to increase my courage. So I need to do different things to get out of my comfort zone. And that's going to be part of my journey if I want to do a good job as a leader. And then also to help others do the same, right?
Yeah, before I say anything else, Mike, a new friend from Tennessee says, "Thank you, Lisa. This is so true. Our connections extend beyond our tasks or workplace."
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Yes, they do. They do. And so we want to ask ourselves, do we be authentic, be real? Do we want to be the type of leader people go home, they feel good, they're there for their families, they have energy, to do whatever, help their kids with their homework, read to them, to spend time with their partner, to go out in the community, do volunteer work, and we support that, and we know that we're part of the reason why they're able to do that? Or do we want to be the type of leader who sends people home sick, depleted, feeling stuck at work,
I'm getting, as you're talking as a leader, you're involved in so many people's energy and that energy extends far beyond your direct interaction with them.
Exactly. There's a ripple effect to everything you do.
Wow. So and then I also got that a performance review could be a highlight of the year for both the leader and the team member. Like, it could be so nourishing.
Absolutely. If you go back to the basics of why it existed to begin with, it's to help people grow. And when you come from that place, then your conversation is going to be much different than if it were just to, point out faults and to rate someone, right? People don't want to be rated. We don't want to be numbers. We want people to help us grow, right? So a rating might give us an indication or a guide. So when we explain it properly and say, hey, now you're kind of operating at a 5, and you know what? I'm going to support you to get at a 10 in the next year or so. Let's figure out how we're going to do that, right? All of a sudden it becomes like, oh man, this person is there. They got my back. They're going to try to help me grow and become better. It's much different a feeling than when you're having that conversation. It's like, well, Lisa, in 2021, I observed that, you really didn't speak up much at meetings, so in 2022, I want you to really step that up. Otherwise, I can't give you a succeeds rating. Next year, it'll be a needs improvement, right? So there's a big difference.
Well, I felt that difference in my stomach. The second thing you said, my stomach starts
Not
quenching,
enough, right?
yeah.
Right. And so that So I'm glad you shared that, Jason, because so imagine that that's what's happening in offices everywhere, during performance evaluation time, is those conversations can either be expansive and help people grow, or they can help, ruin someone, shrink them down, make them feel small and want to crawl out of that workplace, so really think about that. How are you going to show up? How are you going to show up for your people that you serve?
And if someone wants to crawl out of your workplace, that's not good for employee retention.
Exactly. And in my case, that day, I pretty much had to crawl out of work because I was in so much physical pain.
Like literally.
Literally. And your Mike says a quality workplace is where we share life. Absolutely, because work is an important, very important part of life. And people who say that it's separate, it's not. What happens at work affects our personal life. What happens in our personal life affects our work. So we are sharing life together. And that's the responsibility and the gift that we have, and the awesome, I would say gift. A gift is a good word. The gift and the honor we have to be able to bring people together and share our lives at work.
Mike in his career was an assistant principal and a principal, and now has his own business. But I mean, leadership's not only in business, but definitely in schools too.
Yeah, it's in all aspects of our lives, right?
Speaking of schools, say like a grade school principal asked you, Lisa, we're listening, we love what you're talking about. How can we begin teaching this to our students?
That's a great question. Well, again, first of all, role model, right? Be role models for compassionate, courageous, and competent leadership, to be able to connect. Listen, teach listening. What does it mean to listen? To listen fully, attentively. And really importantly is to connect with how we want to be of service, right? So I did this exercise with Girl Guides a few years ago. So I was asked to come in, and they asked me, do a leadership exercise.
What is Girl Guides?
It'll be like Cub Scouts, I guess.
Oh, okay, got it.
So 9 to 13-year-olds.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, and so we did an exercise where I told them the story about connecting with their big bright light that's inside of them. And so then I taught them to go within to connect with that big bright light, because that's where they would find the courage to do great big things in life. And so then once I told them the story about a girl who did that because she was afraid to do that great big thing, but she knew she wanted to. So she had to connect with her big bright light. And then they did vision boards. And it was amazing. 9 to 11-year-olds, I think actually they weren't 13, they were 9 to 11-year-olds. And they talked about making a difference in their communities and helping animals and helping the planet. One of them wanted to be an engineer to invent things to help the planet. Another one wanted to help make senior citizens happy. Another one wanted to bake pink donuts so that when people ate them, they were happy, So I think that's where it starts. That's where it starts. It's to have them connect with that part of them that wants to serve, and then support them in that. Yeah.
And this can start really young, like a kindergartner wants to help out, wants to help mom and dad around the house. They want to be of use.
Absolutely. And even to help themselves. So I have a grandnephew. So at the time he was 6, he made up his mind that he wanted to save up money for a bunk bed. So he wrote, like he drew bunk beds. He had this dream about bunk beds, and for a year, he any little money he collected through gifts or whatnot. And wouldn't you know it, he saved enough money to get himself that bunk bed. It was his dream come true. And he told me, Aunt Lisa, he says that this is my dream. I made my dream happen.
Oh,
Isn't that
that's
amazing?
it.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, how he can carry that lesson through his whole life.
Right. Absolutely. And now he's writing, he said he's going to write a book and that he's going to invent all kinds of things. Right. So now he's like, and his parents supported them in that. My niece and it was really great. They didn't ridicule him in any way or whatnot. They're like, okay, well, that's your dream. What do you need to do to make it happen, and go through the steps. And that's how you build leadership is you show people that you empower them early, that they're able to have influence over their lives and that they're able to make choices and decisions and to get clarity on what's important to them. To him, that bunk bed was so important, right? And he made it happen with the support of others, right? So I think that's a pretty cool story.
Awesome story.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, we could talk for hours. Shifting gears a little bit, remind me of the title of your forthcoming book.
Yeah, so it's Leadership in the Hybrid Workplace, the 7 Steps to Reset with Purpose in a Post-Pandemic World. So that's the working copy. It might shift a little bit. We're not sure yet. But the idea is really to look for the opportunities in this time to reset and our workplaces. There were many things that weren't working all that well before, right? So we can get nostalgic all we want and look back, but really engagement levels were quite low globally. We're looking 15% people reporting they were engaged globally.
Say that again.
So there was a global survey done by Gallup and on employee engagement, and 15% of people reported that they were feeling fully engaged at work. That means 85% were non-engaged.
That's insane.
Right. And there was 26% that were like really seriously disengaged to the point where it was causing real issues. So there lots of disconnects, lots of burnout. I mean, somebody wrote a book, I forget the author's name, Generation B, Generation Burnout. So, I mean, those are all indications, right? So we really need to look at this as an opportunity. I think for the first time, organizations, because of hybrid work, not that it's necessarily one size fits all, you need to go through that process of seeing what works for your organization, but certainly on a broader scale, to be able to offer work-life harmony. So notice I didn't call it balance, because balance is, people get frustrated when they try to get the 50%, work and life. Although, work is part of life and life is 100% all the time, right? But so we say work-life harmony, so that feels good. You want to get to the point where it feels good. You kind of love it, right? It feels good. You find you have the right proportions that feel good for you, because we're all different, right? We're all different. And so I think this is an opportunity because of technology, because now some of the old paradigms and thinking about, people can't succeed from home, right? I mean, that's kind of been proven wrong, because now because we had to become more innovative and figure out how to connect virtually and all that stuff and put that in place. Now is the time to really look at what are some of the opportunities that we have to make this work, so that we can create really great work situations where people love coming into work, and they feel like work is something they want to do versus like, I have to do it to pay the bills. So purpose, the word purpose, reset with purpose, is an acrostic, and it stands for something. And do I have time to just go through and just name what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you spell out purpose, the first P is putting people and planet first. So that's the whole point of that sustainability, of putting people first. So what's happened in the past is that with the advent of increased focus on data analytics and results, we've forgotten about people. We forgot that people are the ones who create the results. So we put all our focus on those numbers and those dashboards, and we've forgotten about the people, right? So it shouldn't be results at all costs. shouldn't be results at the cost of people burning out. It needs to be results with meaning.
Results with meaning.
Right.
I love that. I love that.
Right? Results with meaning. So that's the first P, is putting people first, being there to serve your employees, to make sure whatever work we do is sustainable, so it's not hurting the planet and the living beings on it. So that's putting people first. So that's the first letter in purpose. The second one is understanding the struggle. So the U is understanding the struggle. It's not business as usual. Most of us have been traumatized by what's happened in this pandemic. I think probably most of us, if not all of us, have been traumatized to a certain degree about what's happened. Right? And it's scary. And that's not even starting to talk about the geopolitical forces and the social justice issues that are coming to the forefront and all that. There's a lot going on. It's a lot. So rather than pushing people, hey, get over it, time to get results, we need to pull back and say, look, this is not an easy time. How can we be here to support each other through it? How can we help each other with our struggles? And this is where compassion is really, really important. The desire to help plus empathy is compassion. So understanding the struggle and that it's not business as usual is really, really key. Because if you do try to push, guess what happens? You're going to get pushed back, right? If you support instead, then that's how we move forward together and in a healthy way. The next letter, the next R, is for reset the culture, resetting the culture. This is a great opportunity to be able to rethink of it. It's like, how do we want to show up at work? What are the traditions we want to put in place? How do we connect in this new either hybrid, virtual, or in-person workplace? What are the things that bring meaning, that tie us together as an organization? What's important to us? What are our values? And those kinds of discussions need to take place. So it's time to reset the culture and really take a really close look at how we want to show up, not only as leaders, but how we want our organization to make a mark in our society.
And it sounds like really create a strong organizational purpose.
Absolutely, right? Coming back to that why. Why do we exist and who do we serve, right? So resetting the culture is really important. So the next letter is P, for psychological safety and physical security, right? So now we are at the PURP. The second P is psychological safety, physical security. So how do we create a workspace where people can feel authentic? They can bring their whole self to work. They feel listened to, valued, they don't feel like there's going to be retribution if they say something that
the opposite of how you felt in the story you told.
Exactly. I did not feel like I was in a safe space when that happened, right? So creating a safe space so that employees can come, they feel themselves with all their diverse backgrounds, the whole diversity, the beautiful diversity that we have as humanity, to be able to bring that to work and be celebrated, feel like we belong, feel that we can connect, feel that we can be ourselves and be authentic. That's really important. And then, of course, there's the whole physical security aspect of it, right? And that could be as simple as, okay, well, how do we help people feel comfortable in the workplace? Post-pandemic, like this thing's going to hang around for a few years more, right? How are we going to help people to feel secure taking the elevator or being in a meeting room? And it can also be as if you work, for example, in a hybrid workplace, later in the day, maybe there's less people around. How do you make sure that your employees can feel safe, that, even if they have to work alone in a big building or walk to their cars or whatnot? So it's just being mindful of those things and asking ourselves those questions, and also involving employees and saying, what would help you feel more safe and secure? And let's work on it. Let's see what we can put in place. Because of course, when people feel safe and secure, they're going to work better. They're going to feel like they're going to be themselves, right?
And they'll be able to create solutions more readily.
Right. It frees up energy. When people feel safe and secure, like they belong, it frees up their energy, their creative energy. They get in the flow. They're not distracted by drama or tension in the workplace. They feel like, they're appreciated. And even it doesn't mean that every single idea that's given is going to be implemented, but it means that we're going to have a conversation about how I'm thanking you for your idea. I appreciate your idea. It might not work for different reasons or whatnot. I'm going to explain to the extent that I can. And you know what? Maybe we'll revisit it later. Right. So I think that's really, really important. So we're at PURP. O is office setup and technology, right? So being able to set up the office, not just the bricks and mortar, but when people are working from home, how can we help them, advise them on how to set up a better workspace so that it's ergonomically healthy, so that, it's well lit, et cetera, so that they can feel good about working from home too, right? And finally, the last two are service-minded leadership. So how to be in service, not just to our clients, but also to our employees, right? How can we be a service? And then finally, number 7 is evolve and elevate by teaching leadership at all levels, right? By inspiring leadership, I should say, inspiring leadership at all levels, all ages, all backgrounds in the organization.
So what a leader is supposed to serve the employees?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Serve by, first of all, asking them questions about what do they need to be able to do their work and excel at work, right? And then removing those blocks, and helping support them. Do they need certain types of education and training or skills building? What can I do as a leader to be able to serve my team and make sure they have everything they need to do an amazing job?
Well, wrapping up. This is so. Lisa, what you teach. I texted you before this that I feel lucky to have you on, because soon you'll be busy with Forbes and have a business review. But what you teach empowers people to act in a different way and to have a ripple effect, and that ripple effect can go a long ways towards healing what's happening in the world.
Absolutely. I love that you use that word, healing. Yes, we can heal together.
Yeah. And we have a vast opportunity to heal together.
Yes.
Lastly, I want to bring up the subject of perfectionism. I talk about the power of doing an imperfect best, and what I mean by that is we see the best we want to achieve and go for it, but then when mistakes come up, we learn from them and move forward instead of stopping and saying, "Yeah, I tried, I can't." What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. So for me, the way I see it is a lot like what you just described is, when there's failures or mistakes, there are opportunities to learn, right? There are opportunities to build courage. And one of the things that I've really tried over the years to work on, and now I'm helping managers, executives to do the same, is to stay away from blame. Blame doesn't help anyone. Pointing fingers and blaming. So it's all about 100% responsibility and how do I want to react to a failure or something that's imperfect. And also to be able to determine, like when we're creating a piece of work, a deliverable, let's say a report, right? Yes, if it's published out into the public, we want to get it to be as perfect as possible, right? Once it's published. But in between, like there can be a lot of experimentation and it doesn't have to be Perfect. And you know what? If it's an internal work memo and it's just going to be used internally, does it matter if there's an I missing or a T or whatnot? It's making the trade-offs between being, the best quality possible and also keeping in mind time. And does it mean that I'm going to have to ask my employee to stay an extra 3 hours tonight just so that there's some T's crossed and some I's dotted, right? For an internal memo? Like, no, right? And if we have to send it out 10 minutes later, then does it really matter? Right? So it's asking ourselves those questions and being able to discern when it has to be fully baked cake with icing on top and the best decorations possible, and when it can be like kind of half baked, get the job done, and we're still achieving our results and we do it in a healthy fashion. So I think it's about having discernment and to be able to make a judgment call together with our team when things have to be perfect, i.e. if it's being consumed by the public is a good example, right? And even there, I mean, if it's a system or whatnot, you could work out the bugs as you go. And not to catastrophize. Really, if nobody's life is depending on it, let's not act like it is, right? So, yes, if you're a brain surgeon, you have to be perfect. But if you're writing a memo or a book or whatnot, you can probably have a greater sense of tolerance around that. So that's my perspective, anyway.
Well, thank you. I learned so much from your perspective on Imperfect Best and from this whole hour, and I'm sure my guests will too. Thank you. Lastly, how can people contact you?
Yes, so definitely on LinkedIn, Lisa Anna Palmer. I'm the only one. Just make sure you put Anna, not Ann. So Lisa Anna Palmer. You can also go to my website. Our website is www.lightyourleadership.com. Okay, so lightyourleadership.com. That's our website, and you can connect with us through there. You can join our community. And I also have a community on Facebook. It's called Light Your Leadership Community. Where I'm sharing this podcast right now, and also a lot of different pieces of information and lots of resources. And also, please check out my podcast. It's called Lil Talks. It's spelled LYL Talks, and it's available on all the different platforms.
Well, thanks so much for all you do to help people live the best lives and help them whip all the energy out. And just thanks for being you, my friend, and thanks for being on Awkwardly Awesome podcast.
Jason, I just want to thank you for being such an inspiration, for bringing together amazing people, for modeling what it means to be real, authentic, and for just being such a loving, wonderful person and soul. It's just an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you. Wow. So inspiring. Whether you're watching this now or watch it later, hope you enjoyed it and then please take away what you can use. Lisa said so many just profound nuggets. So wonderful. And then if you're really inspired and know someone who this podcast could benefit, please share it. That'd be great. And on Sunday, so Lisa and I met a few years ago, and this is like our first long conversation versus these two chaps, Dr. Matt and Dr. Ryan. I've known them since first grade. I'm excited talk with them next week and talk to them at a special time on the Sunday, and we'll reminisce about grade school days, and I'll also ask them about being doctors and being surgeons and what goes on in the operating room and how we can be great patients. And with that, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for your time and energy watching this podcast. See you on Sunday. See you on Sunday. Someday I'm going to hit the thank you away when I say see you later, but not today. Okay.